You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Haglund of the CHILLPAK Hollywood Hour and Ethan Dettenmaier of Combat Radio. We're now with a legend who was actually referenced in the last interview because you mentioned Day of the Robots.
I just said that if we got Richard Anderson over, I'm going to throw a pencil down to make sure he doesn't crush it, because that's how you were revealed to be a robot in an episode of $6 Million Man. And I'm sorry that I...
How's that for fan trivia?
Look at that. Do you remember that?
I remember everything. All 5 years.
I mean, that terrified me so much as a boy. I mean, that is one of those images that just,
He's still terrified by that, Mr. Anderson.
Well, we did some amazing things.
Yeah.
We had a great opportunity to go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Excuse me just a second. Stop everything.
Right.
I've got my throat going here.
No problem. Want some water? It was so funny that we just had a conversation about that very show.
Yeah.
And that very episode. And
And
you
now
were talking to the legend.
Now I made him get choked up.
Yes.
Remembering it.
You're very sentimental, aren't you?
At the time I was the robot.
Quite sentimental indeed.
It came at a time of the Vietnam War had just ended.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that had a great deal to do, in my opinion, of what happened. Newman was doing down, negative kind of movies.
Right.
And here we come in there with a guy that, he's a pilot that tries planes, and he gets hurt. And I remember the first day I came in to shoot, he was in the bed. I came over and I said, "Hello, I'm Oscar Goldman."
Nice.
And
That was your first day?
Yeah, first day.
That was your first day of shooting? Because I know
First day
that's
shooting for me.
Wow.
They had started one earlier with a different person in it.
Yeah.
Jeremy Gavin, but they found the chemistry wasn't right, so they called me up and asked me to come the next day and go to work. So.
Well, you can definitely see, I think you can see the chemistry when you look back on the show. Was he easy to get along with on the set?
Majors?
Yeah.
Oh, well, come on. He's very simple. Lee is from Middlesboro, Kentucky.
Is he really?
That's enough, yeah. And those guys, they're just, that's how they are.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed at all. And he's really a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
He has a lot of sides to him.
Mr. Anderson, could I just ask you to move a little closer to the microphone for us?
We don't want to miss.
Thank you.
We don't want to
It's
miss
just gotten
a note
so
of this.
loud back there now.
Okay,
and
sure.
Thank
Well,
you very much.
I thought someone left it here so that it's fine. Yeah.
It was fine.
You know what
and
the
then
ruckus
they got loud.
is the fans think you went home, and now they're tearing that part of the convention center apart. So we need to let them all know to just relax.
Yeah, you'll be back.
The master's still here. You'll be back to meet the fans, and we'll be good to go.
Well, you say the master, and I mean, I led with the $6 Million Man question, obviously, because as a little boy, but you're, and I mean, I admire, you worked with every hero that I have. I mean, you worked with Kubrick, Paths of Glory, Orson Welles on Compulsion, although Orson Welles didn't direct that, but, Long Hot Summer. I mean,
Listen to this, yeah.
you worked with. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a big fan.
The fact was that I was at a time when new generation came in.
Right.
The Clark Gables and all of that were there. I made a picture with Clark Gable at
did?
Metro.
Which one?
Well, it's called Across the Wide Missouri, and I was under contract to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer at that time. I had just started my career in film and television. I had been on the stage before that, and I'd done a little bit of a movie. Actually, it started with I went on a show called Lights, Camera, Action, and they had little scenes like they do today with the dancing, and they had an audience,
Oh, right.
And I won the whole thing, and the whole town was after me.
Is there any truth that after Clark Gable passed away, the whole industry was clamoring for a new Clark Gable, and they went after you because you had what it takes to replace an icon like Clark Gable?
Well, the fact was, they saw that I did my homework.
Yeah.
That's the key.
That is the key.
In other words, I ran into Spencer Tracy. I did 2 movies with him, and he was sitting out there going like this, in the sun, trying to, and he was learning the lines. So I went up. I said, Spence, how is it? Well, there's only one thing you got to do. Is learn the lyrics and don't bump into the furniture.
That's true.
That's good advice.
That's the whole game.
Was that
And those people did that. See?
Yeah.
I mean, we hear you hear horror stories from some actors of what it was like to work with Kubrick because he was so meticulous. But it sounds like someone like you who's just, a pro.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how that happened. He was in New York smoking cigarettes and watching movies because he just made a movie called The Killing,
Yeah.
And he was waiting for the next thing to happen. And he sat and watched all the MGM movies, and he saw me. And finally, when he came out and he got the permission to make Paths of Glory, nobody wanted it. Everyone turned it down. Kirk Douglas finally said, "I'll do it on the way to a movie I'm really going to make up in Scandinavia." You see, and so he called. A friend of mine was talking to him one day, and he said, "I've seen that guy. I want to meet him." So he came over to my apartment, and we talked movies for 5 hours.
Wow.
Really?
And then he went home, and the next thing I know, 2 weeks later, he calls, and Jimmy Harris, the producer, says, "I'm here with Stanley, and we're going to make a picture in Europe. Can you come?" I said, "Well, let me read it." I read it, and I said, "Yeah, I want to miss this one." And so I just packed up my bags when he was ready to leave. And Stanley got on the phone, too, said, "I'm glad to have you." And I said, "Where are we going?" He says, "Well, it's really about the British, And then it went to the French,
Yeah.
and neither of the countries would film it.
Oh, right.
So guess where we go?
Canada.
Germany.
Germany.
Germany. Well,
Munich.
wow.
I was in Munich about 5-6 months. And Stanley, I understood Stanley. Right away I got it on the first scene. Kirk Douglas and I had a scene. And he, after the one rehearsal, after one take, I remember Kirk mumbled, "Oh, this guy's great. He's great." I remember that. I like that. And then I followed and watched him, and I knew just what he was. He was a grandeur person. Everything with him was what you see. That's the kind of a director he was. He was always looking at the clouds outside and waiting, and he didn't mess with much of the rest. Though he did know when something was right and wrong, but he didn't know how to do it.
Right.
And so I got that right away.
But did he do 100 takes like he did on Eyes Wide Shut?
He only did that once. He did that toward the end of the movie when the three guys were about to get killed and they were talking about it. He did 74 takes on it one day, and it was on a Saturday, and Jimmy Harris came down about noon and said, "Stanley, please, what are you doing?" He says, "Get out of here. I don't have it right yet." Well, when at let's see, at a gathering of another director at the Directors Guild who I'd worked with, and they were doing it for Kubrick. And they asked me some quotes, so I gave one quote. I said about that 70 take thing. "Oh, he just wanted it to get around."
Really?
That's great.
Like William Wyler,
Yeah.
like George Stevens.
Sure.
Those are the guys that did that too.
Yeah.
They did that on purpose,
On purpose?
Well, because it took them a year to make a movie. Today, and then at that time, the sons of the guys that run the movies and all that, we're going to get these guys out of here because it costs so much money to do it. And you ask anybody about anybody that worked with William Wyler, they knew they were in for it. But by the God, Charlton Heston, when he got through with that movie, came the next day, said, "I'll do it for nothing." He won an Academy Award for it. This is how it happens.
So there's a little bit of acting going on with these directors so that they get what they need.
This is what he does. Wyler, he was the best of them all. He'd sit under the camera with his, under the camera. Can you imagine acting with a guy under the camera? And it was Laurence Olivier, and he was doing a picture with Jennifer Jones, and he comes in and has a scene where he was owned a big restaurant. Restaurant's gone. She's a big actress, and he's broke. And this scene where he comes in, he walks in, and she says, "I've been looking for you. Where you been?" And he goes like this. He goes, "I need something to eat." She says, I'll come back, you know. And he says, yeah, all right. So we do the thing. I come in, I need something to eat, you know. And he did it a couple of times, and then he did it about 10 times. And Olivier made a picture with him before, and he didn't want to be an actor in pictures, you know, but Wilder taught him that there's something to it. So he stepped back 15 times, and then he says, Willie, what? They said, no, go ahead. After 30 takes, he says, Willie, I've done it this way, I've done it that way, I've done it every way I know. What do you want? Wilder behind the camera was there. He went like this. I want it better. Now, this is what they did, though. This is what he did. He might have used the first take.
Right.
By the way his lips moved, or the way he looked at her, you know.
Right.
And that's why those pictures were so extraordinary.
Yeah.
Now back to Kubrick. I figured out he was interested in the overall look of the movie.
Right.
That's what he was, basically.
So did that give you more freedom or less freedom?
Well, it came to the point where I did something to let it. It was this that was. It had to do with two things. First of all, I had 3 days off, and I went to Paris. I'd never been to Paris. I come back, and there he is. He goes, there he is. What's going on here? I'm directing this movie, you know. I've been here. I helped get the movie started, and here Anderson goes to Paris for 3 days. Why aren't I going to Paris?
And how did you respond to that? Because I'm Anderson and you're the director.
Wait a minute. Nothing at that point, but at the last scene in the movie, where I come around and read the action. I did it this way, and I just said so and so and so and so, and I read it like this: these three people are. It's got him, you know. He's a very well-to-do officer. He knew the difference between good and wrong. He was a young man, and so I shot it that way. I did it, and it was in my eyes. That's all. And then Kubrick comes and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Look, this guy sees what's going on here. These generals are just, playing cards with the army, Let him see that this is crazy, And he says, well, and then the script lady comes over and says, and she says, well, do it the way you've done the rest of the movie. And the script woman, German, by the way, comes over and says, that's what you, I said, get out of here, will you? And then I did it his way. And then he saw it. And if you see the movie, by the way, critics got it. They saw it in my eyes. Then I say, this is crazy. I don't know what we're doing here. This is wrong. This is dead wrong. So after he did the take the way he wanted it, he says, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'll put the one in that you like if you tell me what you did in Paris.
Nice.
You want to learn about Kubrick?
That's awesome.
So you know what I said? I told him what he wanted to hear.
Right.
Oh, what a great deal.
Isn't that lovely? Monjou, how about Adolphe Monjou?
God, I mean, you've worked with you've worked with everyone. I mean, can we book another weekend in the convention center just to interview Richard Anderson?
Are you in Los Angeles? Are you based in Los Angeles?
I live in a town, if you'll excuse the expression, it's called Beverly Hills.
Oh, okay, good. So you can come back to the station and we can do another interview.
Oh, sure, anytime you want.
No, we should do that. That would be
awesome.
Because I want to hear about Orson Welles and
Welles. How about Welles? Oh,
yes.
boy.
I do want to point out though that I led with $6 Million Man, but you were a big deal in science fiction. Before that, you were in Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
And that was a seminal work.
Yes.
I mean, without Forbidden Planet, I don't think there's Star Trek.
Spielberg and Lucas would never have gotten anywhere. They did it right after that for them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and Star Trek fans, if they have not seen Forbidden Planet or seen it recently, have to go watch Forbidden Planet because all the relationships that would later be in Star Trek are in Forbidden Planet. And then, of course, based on The Tempest,
all right,
this idea of bringing...
I'll tell you how that got made. You want to know how that
I would love to, yeah.
The guys at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, when I was there, they're a bunch of old geezers. They've been there forever. Louis Mayer and Benny Thaw and Mannix. They don't change anything. It's hard to change. Yeah, different. Like music. My daughter works with Tom Hanks. She's 10 years. And it changes in the generation. See, and she knew how to do that. She's still with him. And this is the thing. The problem was Nicholas Nafak went up to see them and said, "I want to do this picture." I said, "What is it?" And they read it. And they said, "Well, I don't understand it." "Well, it's sci-fi." "What is sci-fi?" "I don't know what you're talking about."
Right.
See? And so he says, "Well, I want to make it." Well, it turns out that he's the nephew of Nicholas Schenck, who runs Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in New York. And so they had to be careful with him. So they said, "Well, all right, we'll make a B movie out of it." Metro had two things. They had an A camera guys and B camera guys. Okay, that's it. Everything. We'll make a B movie out of it. That's what they said. Now it turns out the guys that were working in A, Stradling, Harry Stradling, those guys, they weren't working. So they put them in with us.
Wow.
Number two, they said, "Well, just shoot the whole thing on stage 24," which is what they did. They never left the stage. That's number two. And so he said, "Well, all right, go ahead." So 2 or 3 days in the shooting, he gets a message: Go up to the Thalberg building. They want to talk to you." So they go up there, and there's Benny Thaw and Louis and Mannix, and there's Nicholas going, "Here it goes. We'll give you some more money."
No.
Nice.
Wow.
So that's why that picture looks so great.
Yeah.
And it was made on schedule. Freddie Wilcox, whose sister was married to Nicholas Schenck. You know how things are?
Yeah, exactly. Small town.
And by the way, he was a good director. Elizabeth Taylor used him all the time, and he was a very sensitive kind of guy. And he really did it. He never said much. And with Kubrick, it was the same with me. When I had an early scene on the, remember the, when we were doing the court-martial.
Yeah.
Remember that scene?
Yeah.
I was sitting down, my hat on, and we did a rehearsal out on the grass first. Okay, I'll tell you about the cap later, but we had a rehearsal. They had the judges there, and just, and he wanted to do it. So I was sitting down, and then I got up, and I started walking, and Stanley says, No. I said, "Stanley, calm down, will you? I want to try this."
Stanley, calm down.
Yeah. So I did the whole thing that way. Remember that? And I did the whole thing back.
Yeah, back.
I did it back and forth. And I looked at Douglas. He wasn't there. And I did that, and he got it right away. Put the camera behind the judges. You see.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
it. So I knew I had him. I wasn't trying to be different. I just knew that how this should go for this guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And those court-martial scenes were the ones that got me 50 movies from it.
Wow.
Richard, have you ever written a book about your experiences? Did I ask the wrong
Everybody
thing?
asks. No,
Oh, well,
I'm in the middle of it
Too
now.
soon? Yeah.
No.
I have a publisher that said they want me to do it and paid me, and so I'm into about 30 pages, and this writer is it's an old French expression called "surmished." He couldn't get there. He just no. It wasn't, and he was having personal problems. They said, "Richard, I can't," and he went back to publishers. He says, "You got to get somebody else. I'm not doing it well," and he wasn't. So we're in the middle of that now.
Well, when you do get around to writing the book, completing the book, may I suggest that the chapter about Paths of Glory be called "Stanley, Calm Down"?
Yeah.
Is that not
there
a
you go.
great
That's a good one.
title for a chapter?
Yeah.
And,
There's your writer right there.
In fact, you could probably say that to many directors would be very good for different chapters.
Yeah,
Orson, calm down.
Yeah, but I'm very careful about what I
Sure.
do with that. I mean, I am the actor and he's the director.
Well, I thought
that's
that's-
the way you say it.
That
You gotta just
story
throw
was
it out.
brilliant because it revealed you understood how the director worked,
Well,
and
yeah.
and you tailored your creativity within that vision.
Well,
And
yeah, I barely talk to the directors at all. And after the first, here's how it works: after the first shot, they leave you alone.
Right.
Right.
If they know that
You know what you're doing.
If you're gonna have some problems, and then you're gonna be the guy's going to be redoing it, you know, and the crew just wants to leave, get home at night, you know. And in the mornings they say, "Uh-oh, this is an actor that we're going to have a lot of trouble with. We're going to have to work too late." You know, so that no, I was very careful, and with Wells, he pulled one too on me. Long Hot Summer.
Oh.
I played a Southern boy, and I wasn't too well and in it, you know, and I was outside. A scene was outside, and Orson Welles is coming to have a scene about his daughter's going to marry me, you know, in Southern. So I come down the hill. We were outside in Atlanta, I think. Oh, it was, right in the South. He's coming down. He looks at me, and goes, huh, figuring I'm just nothing, you know. But I want my daughter to marry him, you know, because he's from a bad group and I'm from the old South.
Right.
And he wanted to have good children and all of that. So I said, here it comes. And so we did the long shot. Then came the medium shot, and then his close up, and then he came for my close up, and I started to talk. And Marty Ritt was the director, and he hadn't worked with me yet either. So this is the moment, you know. And so I start to talk, and I go, well, you know, and I do this. And he says, what's the matter, kid? I said, I can't get the words out. What do you mean? Wells was in the background going, well, I don't know, you know, and while I was talking. Honest to God, he was muttering about it while I was starting the scene, starting the close-up, not in the scene. He says, I'm going to get this guy, you know. And I just said, I can't. We don't have two mics here, you know. We just have the one mic, and we're not going to get anywhere. I said that to him. And I hear this guy, and Wells says, he's goddamn right.
Yes.
That's that moment.
That's the chapter title for the Wells segment.
Oh, and was he good in that? But he was on his way down.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's like sitting here with Richard Anderson is like taking a master class.
Yeah, really.
Isn't it?
I feel like I should
really,
pay you for what you're talking about.
I know. I'm at a time in my life where I've found some peace.
Yeah.
And I have 3 great daughters, and I do a lot of work in other ways. I'm producing something coming up now, and I don't talk about it because, you know, I just do it. And
right.
I've really had wonderful opportunities to travel for various reasons like this, you know, on subjects. And I've never been happy. It's just a good time of life for me. And,
well, you deserve it. You brought so much joy to so many of us. And
well, excuse me for interrupting. It was about 350 television shows, and it was. I was checking it the other night on my website. Incidentally, my website is www.bionic.com.
Nice.
How did you get that before anyone else?
Yeah, really. Very savvy.
Lee Majors is just, he keeps calling you. Going,
like,
I'll pay you $10,000 for that web address. How did you do it?
Smart man.
But see, Oscar Goldman was always the brains in the operation.
Oscar Goldman really ran the show.
Well, I saw him this way. I saw him that he was a government man. He was for the Republic. He believed in the Republic. And there was a lot going on that's wrong. And when it happens to this guy, you know, I say to myself, I have an opportunity, a new opportunity here. He was dying, you know. And
right.
By the way, if you see it in the movie, you know, the real guy was doing it.
Yeah.
The fellow that, you know, and I met him later on. Lee and I met him up in Northern California we were working on he was at a air base there. The guy that landed, you know.
That
right.
And he was all right. His eye wasn't right, but. So I just took the view of keeping the Republic safe. That's all. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And here I had this guy, and I talked to the doctor, and I say, can you do anything for him? They say, no, impossible. But we have something new we're going to try. I said, what is it? He says, well, it's called bionics. So that was how it started.
Awesome.
And then the whole thing is I call them in every week, and I say, this is what we got going. You know?
Right.
Now, that's not easy. It's one thing if you're doing a little comedy or you're reacting, you know. But when you have to say, Steve, and by the way, he was getting on with saying, I don't want to do this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Remember all that? You know?
Yeah.
And then I finally said, at that point I said, let's get a lady in this show.
Right. That's always a smart plan, though.
So she was under contract to Universal, and they just dropped her from the contract.
Oh.
Just that week. Oh no, right at that time. So they said she didn't have something. And she was incredible. She tested, and Mike Silverman, who at ABC, says, "Get that lady. We're going to use her." You know. So we did the second one. The first one we moved from Friday night because some half-hour killed us. Comedy show. So Sunday night, 8 o'clock, folks. We were there forever.
Nice.
I remember that.
Yeah. So she came on and did one, and Silverman says, "Let's do another one." So we did another one, and he says, "We're gonna use her.
Yeah.
Get her started on her own." The studio said, "Well, why don't you try it?" And he says, "You don't understand. I want this lady." See, and of course you saw what happened with her.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Well, you're here forever in more ways than one. You're immortalized thanks to DVD technology. And
well, that technology was amazing because there was a way we could do it that was so interesting. Harv Bennett was the producer. He took it from Larson. Larson was trying to make James Bond out of him. In the first one.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus, get the guy out of here. So we brought in Bennett, who was with the network, by the way, and very bright guy.
yes.
Right.
So he wanted it to be more as I had started playing it. He said that was fine. But we brought her in, and then we had to figure out a way to do that because she had died, in her
Parachuting.
parachute.
Yeah.
So I said, well, look, let's try cryogenics. We'll bring her back with cryogenics.
Right.
And so indeed, that's what we did. And she had her own, and he had his. And during the shooting, early on in 6mm, one of the man that was cutting the film, something happened, and it went into slow motion.
Yeah.
And Harv said, let's try this. So it became this.
Oh, so that was an accident?
Accident.
But the sound effect has been immortalized in
Yeah, totally.
everyone's
Everybody's
skull.
still-
Steve Austin, astronaut, barely alive, will make him better than he was. Better, faster, stronger. We have the technology. Now that's been on there since day one. You know?
I love it. Well, it'd be a privilege for us.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier, right here on LA Talk Radio.